Alright, this is video 4, I believe. This slide should be titled Eyewitnesses. So, during the building of this case, the Crown prosecutors, they built 2 eyewitnesses who they found from the campus. They basically questioned a bunch of people, and they spread the news that if you had seen one of these 2 people, or even both, that you should come forward and testify in court. So the 2 people that they found were Marianne Purse. Marianne Purse testified, not testified, but said that she had seen Elizabeth and Robert at a picnic on campus around 4 to 5 o'clock. Exactly, actually 5:40, my bad. And David Dibben was the other. He said that he saw Robert driving Elizabeth in Elizabeth's car leaving the campus. That's all he ever saw. That's all he ever said he saw. Apology. He did say, though, that he couldn't really see the face. He could only see a male figure driving the car with Elizabeth Payne. I would ask that you please switch to the next slide, which is titled The Failure to Build Evidence. So, a defense. Robert's defense team was poorly managed to the bone. Their main source of defense was based on the fact that they had evidence proving that Robert had shown love to Elizabeth, and that if he were to truly murder her out of rage or spite or even an argument, that he would admit to it as he loved her, and he would not want her to die unjustly or without a cause, or even he would feel enough guilt to the person he loved to put himself in. So the fact that he was pleading not guilty in this case was to them enough evidence that he didn't do it. What they immediately tried to do when they were first building the case was the evidence that there was no evidence pertaining to DNA to Robert. But what happened is I forget the term of the person who organizes the evidence, the evidence that can be presented in court, but the evidence for this specific information saying that there was no DNA evidence of Robert was wiped. They were not allowed to talk about that fact at all in this case, which really screwed over Robert. That's one of the many issues with this case, is the organizers of the evidence were in complete shambles. For examples I will talk about later in a couple slides. So the next slide you can turn to is called The Final Verdict. So because of these 2 things, the fact that there were 2 eyewitnesses in this case and Robert's defense team could barely come up with a valid reason to why he wasn't even there, they then, inevitably, after 2 years in 1992, I believe it was March 21st, Robert was sentenced to, how many years? I forget the exact number. He was sentenced to life in prison, which in Canada only means like 35 to 40, I believe, at the time in the 90s. And he was also not allowed to apply for parole within the first 17 years of his sentence. And he was sent to, I forget where, it doesn't say on this slide particularly, I believe I talk about it later, but he was sent to a fairly new, or at least renovated institution in Ontario, but he was sent to a prison institution. You can end the video, Nori. Thank you.